Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Cyber Teacher. Unfortunately, I'm very sad to say that I cannot be with you today, but I'm sure you will be in very good hands. And then I missed you yesterday, so we are one lesson behind. So definitely we have to get on and study about our next topic, which is fertilization and conception. So as I told you before, the first day we met, no excuses, only solutions. And this is one solution that I think will benefit both of us. Okay? So our last meeting, we talked about menstruation. And we learned from that meeting that if the released egg is not fertilized, then the woman menstruates. Okay? That means it releases the blood from the uterus. If the egg is fertilized, on the other hand, the egg travels from the fallopian tube and embeds itself into the blood that is collected, that is already in the uterus. Okay? So, how does fertilization happen in the first place? Well, you'll find out today. FBI warning. The lesson that you are about to see is guaranteed to elicit an ew response from immature audiences. It's a good thing that 7E is quite mature. Right, Andrew? Yeah. It's a good thing that 7E will look at this topic like medical students. And 7E knows that vocabulary and pictures are an easy way of learning about the reproductive process. Okay, so now that you're done squirming and giggling and ewing in your seats, let's get on with the lesson. Okay? Jaden, do you want to move forward? Okay, as long as you're not blocking other people, that's okay. So, our vocabulary. Now, by now, you should have your workbooks. Okay, your new workbooks. If you don't have them, then please pause this video and distribute the workbooks. Okay? The first one is sex cells. Now, the first lesson we talked about cells, okay? And then your project for this was the 3D cell. And a lot of you made 3D models of sperm cells. Unfortunately, nobody made a 3D model of the egg cell. Anyway, sex cells are what type of cells, okay? Now, to get that answer, think about this. Those of you who wanted to get higher levels for your 3D cell project, you had to make this kind of cells. Okay? So what do you think those kinds of cells are? Write it down. Okay? Your next vocab word is mating. What is the definition of mating? Okay? What is sexual intercourse? Okay? Fertilization. What happens when an egg is fertilized? So, I want you to look and research on these words. You can look at your pupil book, okay? But you have to search for the meaning by yourselves, for the definition by yourselves, okay? And we will discuss it our next meeting when the students from China classroom come back, okay? Now, when studying the male and female reproductive systems, think of it as a roadmap, okay? Pretty much like the MTR system map, which tells you, okay, the starting point, okay, and the ending point. Where do you want to go? Now, as you can see, okay, I chose two lines here. The green line and the red line, okay? So imagine, the green line can represent the male reproductive system and the red line represents the female reproductive system. So how do we get the sperm from the male reproductive system to travel all the way to the female reproductive system so that it can meet up and fertilize the egg. Okay? So, when we talk about the reproductive system of both male and female, think of it as a roadmap. How the sperm travels from the male reproductive system to the female reproductive system to fertilize the egg. Okay? Of course, you know that there has to be a connection somewhere. Okay? So we are going to talk about how it gets from here, where the sperm exits, and where it enters so that it can go and meet up with the egg cell. Okay? Shall we begin? So remember, when we look at the male reproductive system, look at it as the roadmap followed by the sperm so it can exit the male's body. So it can move out of the male's body and transfer into, okay? So how it can exit the male's body and enter the female's body to fertilize the egg. Okay. Now, in your booklets, you will see the male reproductive system, and you will see several blanks. So what I want you to do is follow our discussion, and I want you to number it, okay? So that you will know the pathway, where it starts, where it ends. For example, the first part would be the scrotum. So I put there number 1, scrotum. So the next part of the male reproductive system that we talk about would be number 2. Okay, so whatever's the next part, fill in the blank and write in number 2. Now, you need to also copy the function of each of the parts of the male reproductive system. Ready? You may ask the cover teacher to pause the video if you need more time to copy. Okay. So the first part of the male reproductive system would be the scrotum. The scrotum is the sac that contains your testes and your epididymis, okay? It's like a bag right under your penis, okay? So in your workbook, write down number 1, scrotum, okay? And copy the function of the scrotum. As I said, if you need the video to be paused, just raise your hand and inform the cover teacher. Okay. So as I said, inside the scrotum, there are 2 other structures, which is the testes and the epididymis, okay? Now, the testes produces the sperm and testosterone. For your information, testes, okay, is the plural of testis. And listen to the way I pronounce it. Testes, testis, okay? And it's also known as testicles. So don't be confused. There you saw a while ago that this labeled this part as testicle. It's also the correct term. Testes, testicles, testis, testicle. Okay, singular, plural. Okay? So the next structure we're looking at is the epididymis. It's the small tube that stores the sperm that is produced by the testes. Okay? So after the sperm is produced here, it stays in the epididymis. Okay? Over here, okay, so the sperm is here. How does the sperm get out? It travels through this tube. This tube is called the vas deferens, which transports the sperm from the epididymis, okay, all the way to the urethra and out of the penis, okay? So this is where your sperm travels to get out of your body. And over here is the seminal vesicle, okay? And it's very important because it releases your semen, the seminal fluid that nourishes and promotes the movement of the sperm. Remember, the sperm has to swim and it cannot swim on dry land. So it needs liquid to be able to move about. So as the sperm exits the epididymis through the vas deferens, okay, it passes over here where the seminal vesicle releases semen, okay, that allows the sperm to move through and go to this other tube, which is the urethra. Another part of the male reproductive system is the prostate gland, which produces some of the fluids in the semen as well. Okay, now this is very important, males. Okay, boys in class, listen carefully. This is the area where most of males get cancer. So read up on that. Okay, prostate cancer. Okay, high occurrence in males. So this is what you have to look out for. Take care of your prostate. Okay, now. So the sperm travels here through the vas deferens, picks up semen from the seminal vesicle and the prostate gland, and then it travels to the urethra, okay? It travels through the urethra, and as you can see, after it passes the urethra, it can already exit the penis, okay? Now, look at this. This is your bladder. What do you think is contained in your bladder? Okay? Your pee or your urine. This is where the urine is stored before it exits your body. And what do you notice? The seminal vesicle and the vas deferens, okay, both connect to the same tube where the urine comes out of your body. So, you can say that your urine and your semen, okay, that contains your sperm, use the same tube to exit your body, okay? And lastly, you have the penis, and it is the penis that delivers the sperm into the woman's vagina, okay? So these are the different parts that make up the male reproductive system, okay? So let's go over it again. So the first part we talked about, number 1 in your list, okay, should be the scrotum. Number 2 is the testes, okay. Number 3 should be the epididymis, okay, and let's follow the track. So number 4 should be the vas deferens, okay. Number 5 would be the seminal vesicle. Number 6 would be the prostate gland. Number 7 would be your urethra. And number 8 would be the penis. Okay, so that is the journey of your sperm. It's produced in your testes, stored in your epididymis, travels through your vas deferens, okay, picks up seminal fluid or semen from your seminal vesicle and your prostate gland. It continues its journey through the urethra and it exits your body through the penis. Okay. Finish up your notes and we will continue. Okay, so we have talked about the male reproductive system, and of course now we are going to talk about the female reproductive system. Okay, so you have to look at this as the roadmap followed by the egg cell so it can exit the ovary and wait for the sperm while it's in the fallopian tube. Okay? You can also see this as the roadmap followed by the sperm so it can find and fertilize the egg cell. So in your booklet, you will see a photo or a diagram of the female reproductive system. do the same thing as we did with the male reproductive system. Okay, we are going to discuss the parts, and as you can see, the female reproductive system has less parts than the male reproductive system. Okay, so you number it according to order, the order we discuss it. For example, we start with the ovaries, okay, and we move about. So first, we are going to trace the journey of the egg cell, okay? So, the ovaries, the females have two ovaries, okay? The left and the right, okay? And it's the job of the ovary to release the egg cells, as well as the hormones estrogen and progesterone, okay? Those are the female hormones. While the male hormones, if you remember, is called testosterone, okay? So the ovaries contain all the eggs that you have. You have a finite amount of eggs. You were born with a finite amount of eggs, okay? So it's stored in the ovaries, and when it matures, it is released, okay? Every month, one egg cell is released. So the next part we're looking at, after the egg cell is released from the ovary, okay, it travels and it stays in the fallopian tubes, which females have two of as well, okay? So after the egg is released in the ovary, it parks over here, either in the left or right fallopian tube, waiting for the sperm to come and fertilize, okay? Now, if the cell is fertilized, okay, it goes into the uterus and embeds itself in the nutrients, the blood that's collected here, okay? Now this upside down triangle shaped organ here is called the uterus. It's also called the womb, okay? This is where the baby grows, okay? So let's start again. Number one would be the ovary, where your egg cells are stored. Okay, then number two would be the fallopian tube, where the released egg stays and waits for the sperm. Okay, and if the egg is fertilized, it travels down to the uterus, which is number three. So that's where it grows into a baby. Over here, okay, so over here we have the opening to the uterus, which we call the cervix, okay? So this is what separates the uterus from the vagina. Now, when you're pregnant, there will be a mucus plug over here to protect the baby inside, okay? So that is the cervix. It's the lower part of the uterus. It's like a gate or a doorway into the uterus, okay? And lastly, number five, we have the vagina, which connects, okay, the uterus to the outside of the female's body. Okay? So number one would be the ovary, which contains the eggs. Okay? And once the ovary releases the eggs stay in the fallopian tube, number two. If it is fertilized, it goes to the uterus and embeds itself in the blood, okay? And what happens when it's not fertilized? Think about that. We talked about that when we talked about the menstrual cycle, okay? So, now, if it's fertilized, it goes to the uterus, which is also known as the womb, and it grows into the baby. You see how thick those muscles are? This stretches to accommodate a full-sized baby, okay? Over here, you have the cervix, which is the gateway to the uterus, okay? It separates the vagina and the uterus. And as I said, when you're pregnant, there is a plug over here, a mucus plug that protects the baby. And number five, this is the vagina. It's a tube that connects the uterus to the outside of your body. So, how does the sperm get to the egg? Okay, now the answer here is one of your vocabulary words. It is through sexual intercourse. Okay, so remember, what is the job of the penis? So it's the job of the penis to deliver sperm into the vagina. Okay, so the sperm produced by the testes is stored in the epididymis. It travels through the vas deferens, collects seminal fluid from the seminal vesicle and prostate gland, and then it goes to the urethra where it is released to the penis. Now, how does it transfer? As I said, through sexual intercourse, it is way. So remember the MTR, in order to get from the purple line or from the green line to the red line, you have to transfer. Okay, you have to transfer in Mongkok to get to the green line to the red line. Okay, so this is the same thing. In order for the sperm to travel from the male reproductive system to the female reproductive system, it has to have a transfer station, which is where the penis and the vagina intersect. Okay, and that is what we call sexual intercourse. Okay, so this is where the penis goes. Okay, so when the penis is in here, it releases the sperm, and the sperm, now this is the roadmap of the sperm. Okay, so from the urethra, it exits the penis, okay, over here, and it travels up the vagina into the uterus, and then it splits up. Okay, some of them go to this side, some of them go to the other side. Now, if the egg is on this side, poor sperms who chose to go to the other side, they're going to die. Now, the sperms who go to the correct side, okay, they have to swim super fast because it's a race. Millions of sperm, and only one sperm will be successful. Okay? Now, sometimes two sperms will be able to fertilize the egg, but that's very rare. Usually, of the millions of sperm that go, okay, only one is able to fertilize the egg. Okay? So that is what fertilization is. It's when the sperm, okay, inserts itself into the egg. Okay? And when that happens, the egg cell puts a protective covering around it so the other sperm cannot get through it. Okay? So, boys and girls, that is the end of our lesson. We talked about the different parts of the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. You learned about the roadmap of the roadmap of the sperm, how it gets all the way from the testes all the way to meet the egg cell that's waiting for them in the fallopian tube. Okay? You also know the journey of the egg cell from the ovary to the fallopian tube. Actually, it's a very short journey because if it's fertilized here, it is already called a zygote. Zygote. So it's not an egg cell anymore. It's a fertilized egg cell or a zygote. Okay? So the journey of the egg cell is very short. Ovary to the fallopian tube. So the sperm cell has a longer journey. It starts with the testes, goes to the epididymis, then it goes through the vas deferens, then it picks up again semen from the seminal vesicle and prostate gland, then it travels down the urethra and then out the penis, where it travels up the vagina, enters the uterus, and then it needs to figure out which side to go to. If it chooses the right side, that's the only time that they can find the egg cell, and then one lucky sperm gets to fertilize it, which is when the sperm inserts itself into the egg cell, thus making it a fertilized egg cell, in other words, a zygote. Okay? So your job will be to create a study aid that will help you remember what you have just learned. And what did you learn? You learned what fertilization is. Okay, what fertilization and conception is. It's the journey of the sperm from the male reproductive system all the way to the female reproductive system, where the sperm finds the egg and fertilizes it. And once the egg is fertilized, then conception happens. Okay, you have conceived a child, and that fertilized egg will grow to be a baby. Okay, so create a study aid that will help you remember what you have just learned. Okay, and give it a creative title. I don't want boring titles. Think creatively, let your imagination run wild. For example, if I were to make my own creative study guide, I would name it, okay, for example, I would name it The Long and Winding Journey of the Sperm Warriors to the Land of the Rising Sun. Eh? Eh? Amazing, right? Amazing. So creative, lah. Okay? Now, think of your own, because that was mine, okay? You are more creative than I am. Your brains are still young. Your neurons are still very new. So I think you can think of a better title than that, okay? I wonder where I got my amazing title, okay? Land of the Rising Sun. You see that big circular object there? That, my dear students, that is the depiction of an egg cell, okay, which is really big because a lot of sperm can fit into it. But as you can see, even though a lot of sperm has reached the egg, only one sperm will be able to insert itself into the egg. And once that happens, okay, the egg cell provides an impenetrable coating, okay, impenetrable. That means nothing can pass through it. So after one sperm gets in, the tail, okay, detaches, and then the head of the sperm goes inside the egg cell, and then it starts dividing. Okay. Alas, the lesson has ended. It's time to work on your creative study aid, which is due at the end of class. So use your time wisely. Okay, boys? Okay? If you need more time, you may give it to me at the end of Saturday. Scan and email. Okay? I want you to be very creative. Add pictures, add drawings. Okay? Do what you need to do so that you will remember the different parts, the role of each part, the role or function of each part, and the journey of the sperm so that it can meet and fertilize the egg. Okay? So I'll see you next week. Those leaving for China classroom, have a great time. Those who are staying, we'll have a great time together next week. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.